Everyone, welcome back to another Redstone video. Today I am bringing you a modified version of Fallen Breath's Wither Killer. It's a slightly easier version to build in your normal survival world. What we're going to do, we'll go through the build itself. I'll go through some of the tips that you're going to be needing to build this in your survival world. Knowing that I built this in my one, there's quite a few bits that I think that might be relevant for you. So we'll go through some of those details and then I'll break down the build a little bit more to help make this easier for you to build in your survival world. As always, the link for the world download will be in the description down below. Go ahead and get that ready for yourself. You're going to need the schematic to be placed into the world, and then again, like I mentioned, I'll go through some of the main details you're going to need to actually get this built up. Before we get started, make sure if you do end up enjoying the video, make sure you hit a like and consider subscribing, and check out the rest of my content if you are interested in builds like this. I guess a little rundown of a wither killer, or what a wither killer is probably needed here. I would imagine that if you clicked on this video and you are planning on building this, you probably have a good idea of it already, but I'll give you a quick rundown anyway. So as you can see here, there is a player placing soul sand that is being pushed into a system where the wither is being constructed multiple times, and because of entity cramming, it is basically being killed off really quickly, and his nether star is being harvested and then being dropped into a double chest down there. Now, the thing with this build here is that generally speaking, you want to have quite a lot of wither skulls in order to make this work, and the only real objective here once you've built this is really making sure you have the two items, which is the wither skulls and the soul sand. Now, keeping in mind soul sand is now renewable via 1.16 through piglin bartering, and it's also quite widely available in soul sand valley, so it shouldn't be much of an issue. Now, as far as the wither skeleton skulls are concerned, I would highly advise that you do have a nice wither skeleton farm built up for yourself. If you haven't got one, I'm going to be releasing another video soon enough regarding a build that I've used in my survival world for a wither skeleton farm, so keep an eye out for that. But obviously you will be needing a good amount of wither skulls. Now, in terms of what's different from my version to the one that Fallen Breath released himself, number one, I've kind of simplified things quite a bit. So you can see here, instead of having the shulker loaders like Fallen Breath has had in his video, I've gotten rid of basically a bunch of the bulk here, most of which is down the bottom over there. So now, instead of having shulker loaders and a whole bunch of separate lines feeding in with the skeleton skulls, most of it is just going into this double chest, which is being evenly distributed between these droppers over here. And then obviously, as when you come down a little bit further down to the bottom, you can see that there's a bunch of soul sand that should be in this little section here. Obviously, I'm using a bot right now, so he doesn't actually need to have his soul sand replenished. But you can see here, when you're putting down the soul sand, you're now getting it replaced via this dropper, and you can fill up all of these double chests full of soul sand to make sure you can AFK for a really long time. So again, the idea here is that you're just killing the wither really quickly through entity cramming in this bedrock formation. And actually, this is really the main heart of the system. Obviously, you do need the wither killer to push all the stuff in, but the main issue with this whole system is finding a 3x3 bedrock formation that you can actually build this around. Now, we're going to get to the 3x3 bedrock formation in a minute. There's actually a really easy way for you guys to find this, and we're going to make that nice and easy. But just keep in mind that besides the actual 3x3 bedrock formation, you can see there's not a lot to this build. There's very little that's actually required here in terms of the build itself. There's just mostly just a few pistons, some redstone dust, some repeaters, and some observers. Nothing crazy. In terms of collection, because you're not really doing a huge amount of collection at the same time, you're essentially not needing like a really fast storage system. Ultimately, you're going to be just sending in the nether stars into a double chest or whatever you feel like. If you do want to make this build more complicated, obviously I'm going to leave a world download for the schematic in the description down below. You're welcome to change this up with shulker loaders and re-add all that stuff. One of the main things I wanted to change though, and the reason why I even altered it in the first place, was I kind of wanted to make the whole system work a little bit easier. So now in his original version, you would have required a significant more amount of bedrock breaking in order to make this work because of the positioning of the wither killer. So all I've done is change most of the system where almost the entirety of it is down here, and the very few pieces that you do need are kind of just in and around this little section here, which means when it comes to breaking the bedrock, really you'll probably have to break a, maybe like a 3x8 or so, maybe a little bit less than that even, because once you get down to this layer of bedrock over here, you don't really need to worry too much about it. The main thing obviously being just to get rid of enough of the bedrock around it just so you can actually get this thing built up. I'm going to try and keep this video as short as I can because I know people don't really like really long videos that go into too much explanation, so I'm going to go ahead and give you guys the heads up of what's going to happen here. The first thing we want to do is obviously we want to make sure we've got a good enough location for the bedrock. So I'm going to give you a good bit of advice on how to make this work. And in fact, I'm probably just going to go ahead and give you what I would consider pretty much a cheat code here. So I found out fairly recently that actually the bedrock formation for most worlds, or actually in fact all worlds, are exactly the same, at least for the roof of the Nether. I'm not too sure if that's the same for underneath the main grounds. So what we're going to do here, just to show how things would work, is I'm just going to go ahead and create a brand new world. I'm going to do creative, and obviously just going to show you there's no seed for it. So we're going to go ahead and create a new world. And we're going to let this load up. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to take you to pretty much the exact location that I have in my world where I've built the Wither Killer itself, and I'm going to show you that it should actually have exactly the same 3x3 bedrock formation that you should need yourself. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to grab some obsidian for ourselves and a flint and steel. We're going to go ahead and make our way into the Nether. And what I'm going to do really easily is just go ahead and break my way into the roof of the Nether. Now just keep in mind that the formation that I'm showing you is going to be relatively close to 0, and I really mean relatively close. It should be a little bit further enough away for you guys. It was pretty much further enough away for me for it to be okay. So the location that you're going to want to go to, so I'm going to type in, is 38, and we're going to do 150 just to be on the safe side, and we're going to go for 416. So this is the location that I've identified. This is the exact center of the bedrock formation that you're going to want. And that means that this 3x3 here, which I'm going to outline with flint and steel because I have flint and steel to my hand. This 3x3 here should be the formation for your bedrock. So I'm going to go ahead and break around here. And you can already see the 3 layers of bedrock around this section here. So if I go ahead and break all of this away, you can see you have yourselves a, oops, sorry, that wasn't supposed to be part of that. Okay, that's fine. You can just go ahead and break around here, and you can see you have the 3x3 bedrock formation for yourselves right here. Now, here's obviously the caveat that you're going to have is that you're still going to have extra pieces of bedrock around it, which you're going to need to get rid of. But you can see that as far as you're concerned, this is the 3x3 bedrock that you're going to need, and you're going to make sure that you need to get rid of everything that isn't this little section here. This is all the same. I have tested this on multiple seeds just before I started making this video to make sure that that information was correct. I've tried on about 6 seeds now, and I obviously have done the one right in front of you that is random, so you can see that should be exactly the same case. And again, that number that you're going to want, I don't know why I went into survival, the number you're going to want is right there on the screen for you on the left. That should get you the exact same bedrock formation. Now let's say for example you don't want to do this and you want to instead have a try and find a location a little bit further away in another destination. So here's the best way for you to find one if you really want to. Do keep in mind this is quite a long process and it took me a little while to find that one myself, but there is a relatively easy way to do this. So the first thing you're going to want to do to help you search is go into a creative world of your existing seed, maybe even go into a creative backup, whichever you prefer, and then you're going to want to go and find the location you're going to want to build in. And you're going to want to make sure you have either one or two things. You're either going to want to make sure you've got carpet mod installed or you have world edit installed. I actually would recommend world edit in this scenario because it's a little bit easier, but basically the only reason you're going to need carpet mod is because you're going to change the fill limit, as you can see on the bottom left there. You can see I'm changing the carpet fill limit to 1 million. So I can go ahead now and do something like this. So I can go fill from this location, and then I can go ahead and spread myself out to a really, really long part here, maybe even to around this location here. And then I will use that as a second location, and I want to do, let's say, here to replace netherrack. Netherrack. And you can see that has given you a good amount of space to actually work with, where you can try and find a bedrock formation of your own. Now from here, obviously all you're going to want to do is have a little peek around and try and start breaking little bits of bedrock away to see if you can find a appropriate location for your Wither Killer. Now obviously keep in mind, like I said, it's not easy to do this. You're going to have to run around a few times in order to make this work, but this will be the second best way for you to do it without actually using the same location that I have used on my world. Okay, so now with our location found, the next thing to do really here is to start breaking the bedrock, right? This is probably a little bit more easier said than done, because this is going to be probably the hardest part of this entire build, but definitely worth it at the end of it for sure. And I think, yeah, there's some pretty straightforward designs here for bedrock breaking. I'm going to go through the two main ones you're probably going to be needing for this build. So before I forget, there is one thing you're going to be needing in order to be breaking bedrock consistently, and that is for sure going to be a fast clicker. Now, if you already have your hands on a fast clicker, fantastic. If not, there are some options out there. Have a little look online, you can find some. My total advice to you to make sure you do this as reliable as possible is to use Tweakeroo's fast clicker. So if you head over to the Tweakeroo mod settings, so I'm going to go ahead and go through to the mods, Tweakeroo. If you go into tweak toggles, you should see the fast click, fast right click at least. And you can see here, I've got tweak, fast right click enabled to true. And then once you go over to the tweak hotkeys, you will see tweak, fast right click. And then you can kind of set that to what you want. I've set my one to equal here. And then obviously when you're in the real world, you can see here, you can toggle it on and off. And you can see what quick fast right click really does look like. It is really helpful in this scenario. Like I said, you can use an external tool, but when I've used external ones, you do usually have to be in windowed mode for it to work properly. So I would highly advise that you do use the Tweakeroo fast click. Okay, so I have stepped into a creative backup of the original world that I have built this into, and you can see here the amount of bedrock breaking that I've had to do in order to make space for all of this. I've also outlined the schematic for you just to give you an idea of what you're looking at and how much of the actual bedrock actually needs to be broken. Now, I just want to mention to you, obviously you're going to have to choose a direction in which you're going to build this in, and for that reason I'm going to load the schematic back up for you so you can decide how you want to load this thing up. So you can see here that when you're having the wither killing section just at the bottom, this is going to be the slightly longer side that you're going to need to build this into. Keep in mind that I haven't broken any piece of bedrock that really doesn't need to be broken here. Most of this bedrock was broken because it needed to be done in segments in order to get to the main part of where you actually need to be broken. So you can choose here, so depending on what side that you want the feeder to come in from, that'll be the smaller side, so that'll be here where you can see the soul sand coming in from, and then obviously the rest of the heart of the build will be on the larger side over here. So please make sure when you do the breaking that you choose accordingly from wherever you want it to. So in terms of how much bedrock you're actually going to need to end up breaking, so in each side you're going to do 1, 2, 3, or 3 in terms of like width on this side, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 in this direction, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in this direction here as well. Now I believe in order for me to get rid of some of the surrounding, I had to get rid of these ones over here as well. I don't imagine I would have broken any extra bedrock for no reason, but that should be the same case for you as well. I think all of the bedrock is exactly the same, so you might have to do exactly the same as well. So remember, it's 5 on the side where you're going to have most of the mechanics happening, 4 on the side where the wither skeleton skulls that you can see here where the chest is will be fitting into just from here, and then only 3 or so into this direction over here. So please make sure you choose accordingly and you have everything set up as you should do, so you're ready to go on that side. So the next thing we're going to want to go through is the bedrock breaking. Obviously, if you're familiar with bedrock breaking, fantastic. You should have no real problems with doing bedrock breaking here. However, there is going to be some issues that I came along as well that you might have unless you're a really big expert on bedrock breaking, in which case I doubt you're probably watching this video anyway. So let's go through some of the things that you're going to need to know. So number 1, you're going to need a few specific items. So TNT, obviously you're going to need a whole bunch of. I remember needing at least a few stacks. I remember somewhere in and around the lines of like 5 to 6 stacks of TNT, which shouldn't be a huge amount of stuff to get for you, so that shouldn't be an issue. You're also going to need some obsidian or crying obsidian, either one is fine. And you're going to need some levers. You're going to need some smooth stone. You're going to be needing some trapdoors. And I think lastly, you're going to be needing some pistons. Now keep in mind, these items here you shouldn't really need a lot of, but every now and then you will lose a few of them to some stray TNT. You may make some mess ups, so make sure you've got a good amount of these items available when you start doing this, because like I mentioned, this is going to be a really big project for you to do, so you're going to need enough of those items to help you out here. So the best thing to start off with initially is going to be breaking all of the top layer of bedrock. There's going to be parts underneath here that you're going to need to get with some weird angles, which I'll get to you, or I'll get to show you maybe a little bit later on, but let's start off with the main one here. So this is my favorite bedrock breaking technique that works almost flawlessly without any issues. So you want to choose obviously the bedrock you're going to start breaking. That's where the piston will stay. and you're going to want to use this setup here. So put the piston on the piece of bedrock you're going to want to start breaking off. The obsidian goes behind it with the smooth stone, TNT, TNT, and then you're going to want to put a lever there, and then you want to put a trapdoor on the obsidian block at the bottom here. Okay, this is going to help you get into position for you to break the bedrock in the correct way. And then you're going to want to make sure you pick up a piston, keep a piston in your hand. You want to get into this little section here. You want to flip the lever. Now what you want to do is you're going to have to be really quick with this. So I would actually advise that you keep your tweak toggle for your fast click somewhere close to your left hand for where you're moving around. Mine is unfortunately completely on the other side, but I'm pretty quick with this. So what you're going to want to do is flip the lever, put on the fast click and aim towards the corner of that obsidian. And you can see here that we have broken the bedrock. Now that may have been a little bit fast, so I will do that again for you guys. And I would keep one more thing in mind, by the way. When you're using the fast toggle, make sure you turn it off every time you've broken one piece of obsidian. I have used an entire stack of rockets in one hit by mistakenly not turning it off every single time, so just keep that in mind. So again, you're going to want to go obsidian, you want smooth stone, TNT, piston on top of the bedrock piece that you're going to want to break, another piece of obsidian, another piece of TNT, and then you're going to want trapdoor, and then keep your piston in hand. Okay, and then again flip the lever, get your right click on and just aim for the side of this obsidian block here and hold, and that should be fine. If you have any issues in actually making this work, if you've done everything exactly like I've showed you and you still can't break it, try and change the direction. Sometimes the TNT breaking is directional, sometimes it's not. I've had it be very inconsistent in some cases, but generally speaking, I don't have any problem. If it worked for you in one location the first time around, just continue the same thing all the way around every single time. Just make sure you're always having it so the piston's facing that way all the way through, no matter whether you're going in this direction or whatnot. Make sure the piston is always on that side. If it worked the first time, it should work every time. Okay, so the next bedrock breaking trick I'm going to show you is how to break bedrock from a different angle. So when you get down to this little 3x3x3 that you need to smooth out, obviously you can see this little piece I've put here as an example. This is the one we're going to want to get rid of because that's the one that shouldn't be there. You are going to have at least a couple pieces that you're going to have to get rid of. There may even be some in the surrounding areas you're going to need this on that you can't get through using the same technique that I did. So here's what I would advise that you do. You're going to need to get your piston, put it up against the bedrock right there, and we're going to want to do a smooth stone block with TNT and smooth stone, 2 pieces of smooth stone just like that, and another piece of TNT with a lever just like that as well. And then you can use 2 fairly simple blocks here. Something like netherrack should work fine. Now this is the part where you're going to need to be really quick because you're going to have to use crouch when you do this. So really straightforward, you're going to have to do click, you're going to have to flip this lever, you're then going to have to choose your fast click straight away, and then you're going to have to crouch and then get into position. So I'll show you what we're going to do. We're going to do that, and then we're going to crouch, and then you want to aim at this piston just like so, and obviously you will fly. Make sure you wear some blast protection armor, but there you can see that worked perfectly fine, and that got rid of bedrock underneath in that direction. Obviously you can't break down from here because you need this 3x3x3 bedrock formation itself. So in some cases you're going to need to break from underneath, and it actually makes things a little bit easier to do so. So yeah, just keep that in mind. But as long as you got blast protection or you have saved yourself, as I did over here that you can see, I had a respawn anchor to help myself just in case I died. Make sure you've got nothing else on you. But to be fair, if you're wearing blast protection, and even actually from what I remember, I didn't really wear anything and I was still okay. But that is something you're going to need to keep in mind. But if you keep those 2 bedrock breaking setups in mind, then you shouldn't have any issues in making this big old space here. But once you're done with this, that's when things get pretty much easy from here. Right, so now that we've found our little bedrock location, we've broken out all the bedrock around the main part that we're going to need. The next thing to do is to start preparing the area a little bit so we can make sure that we have enough space to actually build this whole thing into. Now, the location that you're going to need to do is obviously you're going to want to build. First thing you're going to want to do is maybe break down all of the netherrack that you have in this little space where you see the gaps. So let's say we take away this little location here, and then let's go ahead and take away this little location here. Everything within this needs to be dug downwards. Now the amount that we're going to need to dig down to is about 19-ish blocks. and that should be enough to cover us the distance that we need. In addition to this surrounding area here, on the smaller side where there's only a 3 wide gap that you see like from this side of the bedrock, you're going to want to make a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks worth of space underneath where the netherrack is, just like I've done here as well. So in addition to the little block that you've done with all the spacing within the bounding box of this little bedrock breaking here, you want to do another 5 blocks in the same position all the way down to the to the same level as you have done, about 19 blocks down. So now that we've gone ahead and prepared the area, everything should be ready to build this into now. You can see as an example, I've gone ahead and built this up into this world here, and basically the main thing you need to do, and the main things I want to run by you, is some of the parts that might be a little bit tricky or confusing for you, but the rest of this build should be pretty straightforward as long as you're following the schematic. I built this up using the layer mode and starting off with the cage and then building the feeding system afterwards, and I had no issues using the schematic layer mode, so go ahead and do the same thing on that side. The only thing I think you're going to be needing help with is a couple things. So number one is this little minecart situation here. Again, shouldn't be a huge issue, but if you are a little bit confused, all you need to do is add a rail into this hopper that's going into the dropper system and add a minecart just on top. You then need to make sure you break the rail underneath it, and then what you're going to do is you want to add a wall and you want to add a piston facing upwards. This is obviously going to be temporary just for you to push the wall into the hopper minecart, and then you just need to power the piston, and then you've gone ahead and added the wall in there. No big issues on that side. That's the pretty straightforward part as well. The second thing is, make sure when you're actually building this thing, you don't have any wither skeleton skulls in the system. Initially, you want to make sure everything's nice and empty, and as long as you've got nothing in the system, you won't have to worry about accidentally triggering something whilst you're doing the actual build. Now, as far as the soul sand is concerned, please make sure you have it all laid out initially just like this. So all of the soul sand that you see here needs to be in place. I'm pretty sure the schematic has the layer of the soul sand initially in the right way anyway, but just make sure before you start running the feeder through, obviously none of this needs to be here initially. It's mainly just these two, these three, the two along the block down here, and then this one just up here. Other than that, you might need some fill levels for some of the furnaces. So this one needs a full stack of items, this one needs 42, and this one needs 42 as well. With this system, you might find that it's a little bit weird and sometimes it can bug out. Just make sure that if there's any issues, you can see here that it had a little bit of an issue. All you need to do to fix this is to replace that block, and that should unpower everything. So you can see you got this, add a redstone block back here again, and that should run just fine. Sometimes it can bug out, so you just need to be careful when you're building this. But again, using the schematic means that you should get everything fine. The main point of this thing actually is to make sure you add the redstone block in at the very end. Everything else can be fine. Redstone block right at the end. And finally, the main thing to mention, which I think I've already mentioned before, but I will say it again, you need a very good supply of wither skeleton skulls. In order for you to use this, you will need to make sure there are always wither skeleton skulls available in all of these dispensers here at the minimum. My advice is that you want to have all of these dispensers along with all of these hoppers, all of these hoppers, and this double chest with the skeleton skulls. If it comes to the point where you have some of these empty, that's not a big deal. But generally speaking, you want to make sure the system's entirely full. When I run out of wither skeleton skulls in the double chest, I basically consider that the farm is empty and that I should stop using it. And I think that's probably best practice. In fact, what I've gone ahead and done just to make things a little bit easier, which I actually forgot to mention it in the beginning when I made this, is that you actually do need an automatic off switch. Now you can move this off switch to kind of wherever you want. You can use the dispenser, or sorry, the dropper, or even the dispenser as your point of like, I've run out of with the skeleton skulls. But what I've done now is I've added a slime block line or a power line to basically just turn off the system to power this piston once we've run out of items. So for example, now what happens here is, let's say for example this dropper ends up empty. Let's get rid of that. That's going to depower everything, which is going to allow that redstone torch at the bottom to be powered, which means this piston will be extended. So if you're standing here AFKing, obviously you won't be able to place soul sand here anymore, which means it'll be off. And then once you go ahead and fill up the system again with the skeleton skulls, your system will then be released and then you can actually use it again. I've gone ahead and added this same feature into the world download version as well now, so you should have this in the schematic. The only change I've had to make in order to make this work is change the positioning of the double chest, which shouldn't be an issue. You can kind of change the double chest input yourself anyway. Please do remember though, when you're feeding into the system, you do need to make sure it's double hoppers going into these droppers, because unfortunately with the speed that you're placing the soul sand, a single hopper into the dropper won't work, which is why I didn't just remove one of the hoppers from the original design. You do need to make sure it's double inputs on each side. So with that said, guys, I think I'm going to go ahead and end the video there. If you've got any more questions or think I've missed anything out, make sure you leave them in the comment section down below, or go ahead and hit me up on my Discord for a quicker reply. It's more likely I'm going to get back to you there with more detail if you need it. If you did end up enjoying the video, make sure you like and subscribe, consider checking out some of my other videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.